Can everyone hear us? Yes, thumbs up if you can hear us.
Yeah,
nice,
awesome.
Nice. Hey everyone, my name is Ohany Roman. I am a Millennium Fellow and Campus Co-Director at University of the Ozarks in Clarksville, Arkansas.
And my name is Richard Rodriguez. I'm also a Campus Co-Director with Ohany here at University of the Ozarks. We're so happy to be with you all today. And Ohany, we have a special guest that we're going to be interviewing today.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today from all around the world, different time zones, and we're very excited to introduce this webinar featuring Ms. Christine Daugherty. Thank you so much for joining us. For the next 50 minutes, we will have our first moderated dialogue for around 15 minutes with Ms. Daugherty. For the remaining 30 minutes, we will open it up for Q&A, so you can ask your own questions to Mr. Daugherty, to Mrs. Daugherty.
So please remember, same rules pretty much that we have followed in the previous webinars. You gotta keep yourself muted if you're not speaking throughout the webinar. So if you wanna go ahead and type your introductions in the chat box, that would be awesome. Go ahead and do it, please. We will be so happy to get to read where you guys are watching from. And we can tell that there are quite some new faces that have joined us. So everybody, welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Please introduce yourself in the chat box. You know how it goes, name, university, country. It's wonderful to have all of you here with us today. We're so happy.
Yes, so to start off today's talk, we would love to introduce Ms. Christine Daugherty. Christine Daugherty is VP of Sustainable Agriculture and Responsible Sourcing. Christine and her team deliver global transformation and innovation through agriculture sciences and responsible sourcing solutions for PepsiCo. Prior to PepsiCo, Christine worked at Tyson Foods, where she held various roles, most recently Vice President of Sustainable Food Production. Her responsibilities included natural resource conservation programs, responsible sourcing, and farm animal well-being, as well as leading the company's sustainability programs across multiple platforms.
Christine holds a Juris Doctor degree from the University of Arkansas School of Law. Yay, we had someone from our state. Postdoctoral in plant gene regulation from the University of Florida, a PhD in plant physiology from Louisiana State University, as well as master's degree in plant pathology from Iowa State University.
Nice.
Without any further ado, everybody welcome Mr. Daugherty. It's a pleasure to have you today with us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. I'm just watching the names and the locations scroll through. Amazing. Really impressed with the time zones, the locations, the universities. So quite the honor, and thank you to the Millennium Fellows and the fellowship, because this is quite amazing. Technology at its finest, and then being hosted by my alma mater state at Clarksville in Arkansas. It must be destiny.
I know, right?
It must be.
We're so happy you are with us today. And I guess we will now proceed to our moderated dialogue.
We'd like if you can introduce the fellows with some remarks of your experiences. Generally, like, how have you moved toward developing your career? We'll love to hear from that.
Perfect. I'd love to give you a snapshot of my journey, and I would say that my journey is not a straight line by any means. And so as you are thinking about your professional career and what you would like to do throughout your life, the straight line is probably not going to be the way you're going to proceed. As you heard a little bit about my bio, I grew up in Iowa, small farming community. I went to a small liberal arts school, had undergraduate degrees in biology and chemistry. Decided to go on and do something at Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa. I got a master's in plant pathology. By that time, as you know, in my early 20s, I was kind of tired of living in Iowa, and I thought I needed to explore the world a bit, and had the opportunity to go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and work on my PhD. And that was the first time that I'd actually left Iowa. We had left for, vacation and other things, but that was leaving the home state, going somewhere completely different, and had a wonderful experience in Baton Rouge to enjoy the culture, the people, quite different than in Iowa, and good growing aspect for me personally. While I was in LSU, had the great fortune to work on a project that actually culminated in 2 experiments going up on the shuttle. The research that we were doing at the time was looking at how we could feed ourselves if we decided to do long-term space exploration. It was also the time that the space station was being built. And so the research that we were doing was looking at how plants behave in a microgravity environment. Would they go ahead and produce fruits and seeds? And could we as society be able to grow plants and sustain ourselves over a long space exploration? And I will give you just a little bit of a spoiler alert. If you've seen the movie, The Martian really doesn't work like that in space, but it was a good movie anyway. And so I had the great fortune to spend time at the Kennedy Space Center, really get involved in a lot of the space science that was taking place, not only at Kennedy Space Center, but in Houston and other places. But here's the thing that you might think about as you're going on your journey. I had a wonderful mentor at the time that told me, you are great and your science is wonderful, but I think that NASA will not be a viable option for you long term. And so that was a point in my life that was really kind of hard. It taught me the fact that even though I was doing something that I loved dearly, the organization itself was struggling. And if you think about it today, in the US, we don't have any more shuttle. The space station is, serviced by other countries. And our own space biology, space science in the US has really, really decreased. So I had to make a career decision, knowing that I was leaving a field that I really, really enjoyed. I was married and had children at the time. And so I decided at a older age, in my, late 20s, to do a career change. That was my decision and our family's decision for me to go to law school. And I went to law school to marry the science and the law. I'm a registered patent attorney. But as you travel your journey, you're going to come to a point in the road that you have an impasse and you're going to have to make a right or left turn. And that's okay. Find somebody to help guide you through that. If you have, a support role, whether it's a partner or other entities that you rely on, lean on them because it's going to be a little tough. It was tough, to go to school with 2 small children and start that career again. But as it turned out, had the opportunity to marry science, marry the legal profession, ended up working at a large animal production company that is based there in Arkansas, Tyson Foods, and also was able to really do a lot of good work on shaping how animal agriculture thinks about sustainability during that time. And then had recently an opportunity to come over to PepsiCo. I'm based out of the Dallas, Texas office. And that is another journey where I'm really moving at a global level and trying to work with our farmers all over the world that grow our crops. And some of you may go, Pepsi? Really? Blue Can Pepsi? What do they grow? But you think about it, you know, we have potatoes for Lay's, we have corn for our Doritos. In many countries, we grow nuts and seeds as snacks and plantains. We have coconut water in Brazil. We have a number of other ingredients, sabra, which is a chickpea or a hummus-based product. In the US and in Europe, you may see a product called Naked Juice that is cold pressed fruits and vegetables. So PepsiCo is really a global food and beverage company. And what we do is work with our farmers on good sustainable agricultural practices. So I'll pause there, but that's a little bit of my, I call it the bumblebee journey. It's not straight by any means. And so don't be disappointed if you have to take a right turn. Some people say a door will open. Yeah, it might, but there might be a window that opens and you're going to have to kind of crawl through that, but it's going to be a journey that will be good at the other side.
Wow. Thank you so much for those remarks. Like, I do think that applies a lot to us as emerging student leaders. We are building our projects, and sometimes we don't realize that we're gonna take decisions either to turn right or left, as you were saying. And especially, I love the fact that you touch upon the fact that you're gonna need support from somebody as you transition into that. And I think the Millennium Fellowship does a great job for all of us into giving us that support, that encouragement to take our social career impact into the next level. So I do think that applies a lot, of course, to what we're living right now. And it's also interesting to see that from all the way to the space, you had to go back to Earth and start and work with farming and work with sustainability. So we loved hearing that from you. So thank you. We will now proceed to our moderated dialogue. Richard and I have done amazing doing some research on that.
We have cyber stalked you.
Very good. Oh,
And, you mentioned something that was quite interesting to me. Like you mentioned that you started law school already taking care of 2 children. Am I right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Okay. So our first question is actually somewhat related to that.
It's actually, the role of being a woman, and especially in the field, for my perspective, it's so interesting. And we had the opportunity to read over an article that was published this year on the website from PepsiCo. And the article is called "Why Women Are Key to a More Sustainable Agriculture." As we read through it, we were wondering what particular experiences inspired you to focus your efforts toward improving the lives of many women farmers through initiatives like the Closing the Crop Gap and the sustainable farming program. We would love to hear what the key experiences that drove you toward helping women like that through your position.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, growing up in Iowa, I was exposed to the farming community. And in Iowa, in the U.S., I was known for row crop corn and soybeans, as well as animal ag. And, many women are involved at the farm level. And during that time when I was growing up, the female was usually in charge of, the domestic aspects, the home, but she also was usually actively involved in the financial part of it. And so the husbands or the brothers or the uncles would go out into the field, and she would stay home and take care of the books. She would manage inventory if there was additional folks that needed to be paid, payroll. She did a lot of the business aspect, but it was always behind the scenes. And if you look at females in agriculture globally, you will see that they are actively involved, whether it's in the business side or they're actually, gathering the crops or they're farming themselves. But a lot of times the women are not recognized from either the resources available to them or just the acceptance in society. And let me give you a couple examples and some stats. And so FAO has done a lot of research and found that, if women had the same resources, financial ability, access to capital, access to business training, they could increase productivity by 20, 30, maybe even 40%. So if you do the math, that is amazing to increase productivity on the same area of land. And then the number of meals that could be given as our population grows, we need to be more productive on the land we have.
Yes.
So for me, the driver was, how do we elevate those women so that they do have the resources, they have the ability to access learnings, education, capital. And for the crop gap, as you mentioned, what we did with that was to profile 5 different women and their essentially daily lives in agriculture. And from that, we working with an organization called CARE. Well, we'll go in and provide resources or work with them on getting financial access or capital. So it was really, it's really powerful when you can see a female having same resources as her male counterpart and yet then able to excel on what she's doing. It's truly an amazing story, and not to discount the men. It's just that a lot of times the women are behind the scenes, and we're just trying to have, we call it gender parity, and so that both folks are, producing as efficiently and as productively as they can.
Right. Well, while at the same time they're learning skills, that are both going to help them. And I think it's also cool, amazing to see that through your work, through your experience, your personal perspective, you are getting to tackle different SDGs, zero hunger. You're actually getting into equality and also sustainability itself. So I do believe that that's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So.
Hey, we have another question somewhat along those lines. We were talking about women in the field, but also you also have talked a little bit about next generation practices. So we were looking at PepsiCo's sustainability report, and you talk about it. So our question is, how can emerging student leaders contribute to the development of safe, sustainable agriculture practices? And in other words, what are some small actions that can move our projects toward the right direction, in this case of spreading such generation practices?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so if you think about PepsiCo's supply chain, we have farmers from every continuum. Those farmers maybe in the US or in Europe, which are large scale productions, highly sophisticated, use drones and satellite imaging and GPS positioning and a lot of technology, all the way to the other end where our farmers maybe in India or Asia or Latin America are smallholders, and they have very limited technology. They're still producing by manual or annual labor. So what we do is we'll go in and we'll look and see, how do we assess the risks on each one of those farm profiles? They're different. And what are the ways that we can help? Example, in the big, large farms, we work with our farmers to look at micro applications of things. Instead of spraying fertilizer across the whole field, can you use satellite imagery to see, oh, we need to just take a micro application here in this area? Our other farmers that are smallholders, we talk to them about using protective gear. If you're going to use fertilizer, wear a mask, wear gloves, don't use the same container to gather water to take back to your family. So for you guys, I think just the idea of looking around and seeing where you could have your resources help the farming community. I love to talk to the millennials because they're very tech savvy. And one of the things we say at PepsiCo, we want individuals with a STEM career, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. Because if I think about my farmers in some areas, I want to give them resources where they can get mobile banking on their phone, and the female can get paid and get the receipt and the cash on her phone, and not actual have hard currency, because that could be dangerous depending on where and how. Well, developing software and apps on mobile banking, developing software and apps on how do you tell those individuals across a large area, look and see the weather. Is it time to plant? Is there rain coming or not rain coming? Different agricultural practices. So even though you may not be in agriculture, the science, the technology, the mathematics, the finance, the engineering are really applicable to agriculture. And so don't discount ag as a potential career path, because we need all of those
And
disciplines.
especially you have applied through your own like your own experience, right? Like that's amazing. From biology all the way to contributing to sustainable agriculture itself. That's great. That's amazing. So thank you so much for those remarks.
Well, so we would like to give the floor to our fellows who have any questions, who would like to make any comments. So let's go now to the question and answer portion of our webinar. If you have a question for Mrs. Daugherty, well, you know how it goes. Ask it and write it down in the chat box. Remember to stay muted for the portion of the call, for this portion of the call. If we pick your question, unmute yourself, okay? Introduce yourself and ask your question, as pretty much has been done in all the previous webinars. So yeah, roll your questions and see what comes up this time.
Yes, and if you don't have the opportunity to speak, dear fellows, like also go ahead and include your questions. Write them in. We would love to hear, to look at them and speak and on behalf of you and hear them.
And meanwhile, people are typing down their questions. Maybe Mrs. Daugherty, you can give us one last piece of advice, especially, Millennium Fellows are beginning their social impact careers in one way or another. So what advice could you give for the 1,092 fellows, especially those are advancing SDG number 2, zero hunger, as we are doing? So anything you would have to tell us regarding that?
Yes, and that's great. I would say, one word that I try to encourage younger generations is tolerance. I think in society today, unfortunately, we have, in many places, we are not tolerant of diversity of thought, a diversity of education, diversity of viewpoints. And, that is a slippery slope for us. And as we move into needing to feed more individuals, our natural resources are being constrained, climate change is going to have massive implications for all of us. The idea of accepting and tolerant of other diverse viewpoints is really, really important.
I agree, especially as we come closer and closer as a world, right? We must learn that we're gonna need each other to feed ourselves, to share new viewpoints, as you're saying. So
it's so important and so relevant for the U.S. today, also.
Yes.
So we have our first question from one of our fellows. So Barath Venkatesan, I'm not sure if I pronounced it right, but Barath is asking how to find a STEM approach for a problem.
So Barath, if you can unmute yourself, please introduce yourself your country, your university, and go ahead and ask your question. Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. This is Barath Venkatesan from K.S. Rangasamy College of Technology, India. I am pursuing my bachelor's degree in nanoscience and technology. Actually, we are always thinking about integration of same approach for all the problems to create a sustainable solution. I just want to know her view on how to approach these problems with higher end technologies like nanotechnology, because this technology are very costly to apply in the fields. It is in the research stage. How to make this kind of technology to apply in the present day problem to create a sustainable solution for the problem.
Yeah, that's a great question of how do we apply new technologies such as nanotechnologies. If you think about gene editing with CRISPR and some of the other things, I think that again, if I go back to my last comment, how do we embrace the diversity of thought? Nanotechnology is, I think, going to be a great way that we might be able to use that in farming, and here's just an example. So if you are trying to cut a crop, whether you're using an actual handheld knife or some type of a blade on a machine, that blade gets dull quickly and you have to sharpen it. You either have to manually sharpen it or you have to take it to a place and sharpen it. But could you use technology, nanotechnology, to coat that knife face or that blade face so that it stays sharper longer and does not need sharpening? To me, that would be an asset because you're reducing the labor costs, you're reducing the times that you need to sharpen it, you're more efficient on your production, and it's all because you are able to make a nano coating to keep that knife sharper. That's a simple example, but that's something that I think could be applied across the board.
Yeah, it's really great, man. Thank you. And I just want to have your thought on your former CEO Indra Nori about her leadership on the company PepsiCo, because she's from our country. So I just want to get some things from you about her leadership on the PepsiCo's development.
Yes, Indra Nooyi was an amazing woman. She was PepsiCo's CEO for a number of years, just recently retired, and I know that she's on her second career path of doing a lot of board memberships, speaking, things like that. So I would encourage all of you to, go to LinkedIn. She's has a Twitter account. She is truly an amazing woman and continues to bring insight to all of us.
Nice.
Thank you. Thanks.
Could you please repeat her name so fellows can look it up?
I'm sorry?
Could you please repeat the name of the person you were describing so fellows can take a chance?
Yes. It's Indra Nooyi, and that's Indra Nooyi, Nooyi, and she was the former CEO of PepsiCo.
Wow, nice, amazing. Thank you so much, Barath, for your question. Thank you so much, Ms. Daugherty, for answering. We're following.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you. Our next question comes from Anisha Reddy. I see you. So please, Anisha, if you can unmute yourself, introduce yourself, your country, your university, and ask your question, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Anisha Reddy. I'm currently at the University of Pittsburgh in the United States. And I was just wondering, have you faced resistance while trying to implement sustainability measures like through PepsiCo and Tyson? And if so, how do you overcome that?
Yeah, so how do you overcome some adversity and naysayers on implementing sustainable measures? I think if you, at least the way that we've approached it at PepsiCo and Tyson, you always need to come with a business case. And so the companies, food and beverage or other companies, that they are there to provide a service or goods, and to, to make profit. And so if you can link the measures to that business case, which is usually pretty easy, you'll get a lot of buy-in. So let me give you an example in agriculture. So we know if we are working with our farmers and they're moving into better water stewardship, for example, we can see increase in productivity, better quality of the crops, the labor and the input costs are reduced. And here's a little bit deeper dive. In some places in the world, the farmers still use flood irrigation. Then a lot of times the women and the men will spend hours where they get the water from the river or another body, and they'll take the little hose and they'll make little dams to move the water around to the crops. It's very labor intensive. It's a lot of work. And in some parts of the early part of the watershed, there's too much water and there's not enough toward the other part of the field. We'll go in, we'll work with them, and we'll move them. I say move. We offer them the ability to go to drip irrigation, where we bring in irrigation tape and then put up a pump. What that does is it really reduces the time poverty. Those individuals don't have to go and manually make little canals. Crop productivity goes up, quality goes up, and so they're able to sell that crop at a higher value because it's better, and they've recovered a lot of time that they then can do other things. And so that's an example of, we've shown the business case to move the farmer in a different direction. That's a win-win for farmer and for the company.
Okay, thank you. I just had a quick follow-up question. Are there certain populations that you face more resistance from?
Populations. I think that, in general, I wouldn't say resistance. In the agricultural arena, we have a diverse farmer portfolio, so some need more support than others. And the support could be just basic education, access to basic finances. So I don't call it resistance, it's just more effort, and it takes a bit longer than in some farmer portfolios.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Anisha, for your question. Thank you.
Our next question is from someone really special to us. It's actually from one of our fellows here in our school, in the fellowship here at University of the Ozarks. So this question is from Christina Waddle. So Christina, please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christina Waddle, and I'm from University of Ozarks in Arkansas in the United States. And my question is, what sustainable practices have you implemented at PepsiCo and Tyson, and how have they benefited the environment and the community? And I bet there's a lot of examples, so you do.
Yes, yeah. One is just good water stewardship. How do we work in the four walls of either the manufacturing facility or within the corporate headquarters? So for example, here in our corporate headquarters, we at Plano office, we have a lot of areas where you can bring your own mug, you can bring your own bottled water. We have watering stations that you can fill up your water. We also just recently moved to compostable and biodegradable flatware, silverware, and really encouraging a lot of folks to utilize the metal forks and knives and spoons and china, but the non-disposable plates, because those can be washed and they can be reused. So we try to make sure that if we're gonna talk the talk, we're walking the walk. We're doing the things in our own backyard, as I'll say it, before we're asking folks to, do something else. But one of the things, if you haven't heard or seen about the PepsiCo recently acquired, is a company called SodaStream, and that's an actual way that you can make carbonated, either flavored water, you can make soda, you can, whatever drink that you want, and you do the carbonation, you put in the flavoring, and it's there. So you minimize, the cans and the bottles and other things. So check out the Soda Stream. I have one. I, give it as gifts to other folks. It makes, great flavored carbonated bubbly water.
Nice.
Thank you. I have one more question. So is there any sustainable agriculture practices you've implemented that agriculture wise, or do you focus more on the products they use to make it sustainable?
No, so my job and my team is really around the ag side. So we work directly with our farmers that grow, a number of the crops for us to implement the agricultural practices. The example that I gave from flood to drip irrigation is one, but for example, in the Midwest here in the United States, we're working with our farmers in Iowa, Illinois, Indiana to use cover crops. Those are crops that when the cash crop, whether it's corn or soybeans, are harvested, the farm can go in and plant this crop, which then helps with soil health, keeping water, bound up into the soil, and it allows the soil to rejuvenate itself. So we're working with a number of different farmers in the Midwest to try to, minimize runoff, reduce the water needed, fertilizer needed by cover cropping over the season when they don't have the cash crop planted.
Nice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Christina.
And thank you so much to all the fellows who have asked great questions. If you haven't had the chance to put your question in the chat box, please go ahead. We will love to read it. So please don't be shy. Take advantage of the wonderful expertise that Ms. Daugherty has on sustainable agriculture. We would love to hear and look at those questions. The next question is from Kindness. Kindness, if you can unmute yourself, introduce your name, country, university, that will be amazing. Please go ahead and ask your question. Please, Kindness. Or probably are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There you go.
Thank you very much. My name is Oluseyi-Fabivi Kindness. I from Nigeria, Obafemi Awolowo University, the student of economics. And my question is this: when we try and your company tries to bring in new technology for farmers and try and implement sustainable farming practices in the farms. But my question is, when this technology gets there, how do you ensure that the technology is actually utilized in terms of education? I want to know the specific techniques used in educating and the extension services you implement in order to build the communication barrier and the traditional resistance or that form of resistance, or as you have called it, requiring more effort in ensuring that the technology that has been provided is not abandoned, is fully utilized and improves production. How do you ensure that the farmers actually adopt the technology?
Yeah, so great question of, how do we ensure that the technology will be accepted by the farming community, the farmer? How do we make sure that it's, going to be used appropriately? So what we do is we will work with local entities. Usually it's a local NGO that is in country and understands cultural issues, cultural practices, And that way, when we're coming in, we want to be sensitive to that. The last thing that we want is unintended consequences where we could come in and, you know, make it worse. One of the things that we've started, and we have about 100 of these globally, is at PepsiCo we call them demonstration farms. So we'll go into an area and we'll look for a farmer that is well respected in his or her community. It's a leader. Usually it's a younger farmer, but not always. Somebody that's open to innovation, wants to be kind of on the cutting edge. We'll then bring in what we call input providers. That could be irrigation equipment companies, that could be entities that utilize technology. It could be just some practices around field management. Do you till your field completely? Do you strip till? Do you no-till? And then we ask that farmer to take a portion of his or her land, and we separate that out. And so on one half of the field is the way that the traditional farmer has farmed using his or her practices. The other half of the field, we come in with these other entities and we farm, we plant, we harvest using the technology that the farmer could use. But here's where we ask the farmer. He or she then has to open up that farm to the other farmers in the community. They come over a couple times a year, maybe at planting, maybe mid-season, maybe harvest, and they talk to the farmer, they talk to those agricultural companies. They see the difference. They can get in there, they feel the soil, they handle the farmer to farmer, peer to peer learning is very powerful because those farmers in the area respect that individual. And we're seeing that the farmers in the community, they may not farm for PepsiCo. That's okay. We don't care. We want them to take back those good practices to their own field, because then you begin to move the technology out. I analogize it to when you drop a rock in a pond, you see the first circle and then it goes ring to ring. What we're hoping is we're going to be with that first farmer, that first rock, and then the rings move out. So we really have seen success where those farmers are engaging with others, and we call that our demonstration farms. That's a great question.
Wow. We want to thank all the fellows for your questions. There's a question I would like to ask, but it's not directly related to social impact per se. But my question is, what is the top one trait or skill that you think that without it, you wouldn't have been able to get where you're at right now? Maybe like a hard skill or soft skill, something you read in a book, anything along those lines, something you can share with us and the fellows.
Yeah, so I would say there's two. The first is listening. I like to tell, my own children, we have one mouth, two ears. Use them in proportion. You should listen more than you talk, in the sense of make sure you understand the question, you understand the problem, then go ahead and express your opinion. The second one is don't be afraid to express your opinion. Just, gather the information, but raise your hand, stand up, you're going to run into a lot of brick walls, but if you find that you're very passionate about that, you know this is the right thing, do it appropriately, but keep driving forward. So listen and keep driving forward.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
But nice way to sum it up those two really important skills. Thank you.
Welcome.
That's really, really nice. Another question that we had, and this is that I'm shifting from Richard, and this is more like toward career building. From your knowledge, do you know if and this is true? It's a general question. I think fellows are really interested in that too. Are there any current internship opportunities that PepsiCo offers towards sustainable agriculture, or any opportunities to learn more, or be engaged in these initiatives that you are part of?
Yeah, so PepsiCo does have a number of internships that take place in the summer and during the school year. And so if you go to our website, you can type in, college internships and things, then there's a website that you can go and apply. And, I would not limit yourself, as we talked earlier in this a webinar this morning. Don't think, oh gosh, I'm an engineer, therefore we hire all sorts of people at PepsiCo because we need all those skill sets. So encourage you to go onto our website and take a peek.
Nice. Perfect.
Wow.
Well, and if we have the opportunity to put in the chat box, we will, and definitely we'll look into it. And I think fellows also will be really, really interested in learning from it. So thank you so much.
And I'm pretty sure that fellows will be more than willing to keep in touch with you in one way or another, either Twitter or LinkedIn. I don't know what kind of social media you're at. So what do you think would be the best way to keep in touch?
Yeah, so I have a LinkedIn profile. You certainly can do LinkedIn on that. I will have to admit I'm not a real big Twitter, because the 120 characters at times for me is a bit difficult, but probably LinkedIn, and then certainly I'm happy to provide my PepsiCo email. I can send that over to you guys, or I think you guys have it already. You can feel free to share that. I would say though, I travel a lot internationally, so if somebody does, get a hold of me and I don't answer right away, I'm not ignoring you. I just may be in an airplane headed over to India, or Southeast Asia or Latin America.
Nice. So is that how like your everyday routine looks like?
Well, part of my passion and what really, keeps me coming into work every day is I love to be on the farm. And so I have a global team. I have team members that sit in Jakarta, Indonesia. I have some in Madrid. I have folks in Europe. I have several in the US. I have another guy who is in Sao Paulo, Brazil area. So I have the opportunity to visit with my own team globally, but then when I do go to these countries, I go out into the field. I have farm boots. I put on my farm clothes. I have my hat. We like to say in our team, we all have our fancy boots, and fancy boots are your dress shoes and whatnot. And then we have our field boots. And those two boots sit next to each other because you have to be in the field sometimes talking with the farmers, but you're going to have to wear your fancy boots because you need to talk to policymakers, you're going to need to talk to government officials, you're going to need to talk to members of your own company, whether it's your CEO. So be comfortable in both sets of boots, and you'll go far.
Nice. And that's true for fellows like us. When we meet into our cohorts, we wear a certain type of boots, but once we go out into making an impact in our communities, at our school, in the city, we got to wear some other boots and make sure that we convey the message properly. And so fellows, please embrace those advices that Ms. Daugherty are giving because I do think they're really valuable for all of our experiences. In the case of us, we're tackling food insecurity on campus. I'm sure you guys either are doing the same or something similar. Even if it's not something similar, I think tolerance, support from other people, getting out of our comfort zone, pick right or left, I think those things matter a lot. And we would love to hear more from you, definitely, Ms. Daugherty, and from the experiences that you fellows have had.
It's been so much insight, so much insightful questions, so much insight from experiences you have shared with us. I'm so happy we got a chance, the privilege to interview you today. And well, thank you everyone for coming and joining our webinar today. If you were able to gain some insight, it would be awesome. I hope you were. I think you were.
Yes.
I'm actually sure you all were able to gain some insight.
Yes.
So please go ahead and share it with someone from your cohort today, some friends you see around. Listen, learn to listen, learning to listen, and learning how to move forward. Those are some of the advices that we get from Mrs. Daugherty today. We're so happy we had you with us. And Ohany, guess what we have next week? We're still going to have on Monday a webinar, and it's going to be, our guest is going to be Eric Nee. He's the editor-in-chief of Stanford Social Innovation Review. He's going to be joining the webinar next Monday, November 11 at 1 p.m. East Time. So you can register on Crew or on the Millennium Fellowship website. And well, I think this is pretty much everything we have for you all today. Mrs. Daugherty, thanks for being with us. You have been an incredible guest.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I really appreciate it. And I'm quite honored to have the opportunity to have a dialogue with you all, and look forward to hopefully meeting some of you in person along the journey. And keep going, keep plugging. We will absolutely need every single one of you if we're going to make a difference going forward. So thank you.
Wow. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day and night for those that are connected all around the world as well, or a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See ya.
All right. We'll see
Bye-bye.
everyone.